All right, Mr. Chairman, we are now recording and the meeting is being streamed live to YouTube, so you can begin whenever you are ready.
Perfect. Good morning and welcome to this virtual Metro Plan Orlando MAC meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Keith Trace and I'll be chairing the meeting today. We also have a team of folks working to ensure this virtual workshop runs smoothly. Today's meeting was advertised on Metro Plan Orlando's website and social media, as well as through targeted emails. Florida Sunshine Law requires a quorum to be physically present in a room for a government meeting in order to take action. Because of our virtual format today, this meeting is held as a workshop to conform with state requirements. Metro Plan Orlando advisory committees have been meeting in a hybrid format since August of last year and now have returned to virtual workshops this month due to COVID-19 concerns. Staff will advise us about the format of our March meeting, so please stay tuned for that. Now it is time for the Pledge of Allegiance. Today I ask Mayor Henson to lead us in the pledge. If everyone could remain on mute as well.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. At today's meeting, we will keep our microphones muted unless you have been recognized to speak. And we will, if you would please use the raise hand feature to participate in discussion. There are two public comment portions of the meeting. Members of the public who wish to speak can please use the raise hand features on the Zoom screen. If you are attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you are called, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff and we will ask you to state your name and address for the record. We've also accepted comments by email and phone messages before the meeting. The guidelines for public comments are posted on the website metroplanorlando.org/virtual meetings. We want this and all future meetings online to be accessible to all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need accommodations to participate in the future, please contact Metro Plan Orlando staff. At this time, I'd like to recognize Alex Strugger of the Metro Plan Orlando staff for agenda review.
Good morning, Chairman Trace, committee members, and everyone joining us online today. As the chairman mentioned, after a brief transition to hybrid in-person meetings, we've decided to meet virtually again this month. As the chair noted, we will be making an assessment before our next round of committee meetings begin, and we'll be sure to let you know of our plans for our next March meeting. Again, we appreciate your flexibility and understanding during these times. Because this is a virtual workshop, action items that will be taken up on today's agenda that are being advanced to the Metro Plan Orlando board will only be reviewed and discussed for consensus, but no formal action will be taken today. The board's action on these items will be ratified at a future in-person or hybrid MAC meeting, similar to as we did the last time we kind of ratified about 10 months worth of meetings. As the chairman mentioned, we'll be using the raised hand feature to recognize committee members during the meeting and to call on members of the public during that public comment time. Relating to the chat feature on your toolbar, this does communicate with all panelists in the meeting, which does include committee members, staff, and presenters. Please only use this if you're having technical difficulties or need assistance, as the full record of the chat comments will be included in the public record for this meeting. One minor change to the agenda that wasn't previously noted, Mr. Chair, is we will have the FDOT liaison for this meeting will be Tyler, make sure I say his name correctly, Burgett. He'll be filling in for Rakenia this morning as she was not available to join us. So we'll be sure to allow Tyler that time during that part of agency reports. Other than that, there are no other changes to the printed agenda. So now we'd like to take attendance, and I'll ask Ms. Kathy Goldbarb to call the roll.
I'll ask all committee members to please go ahead and unmute yourselves now for the roll call, and you can go on mute again after your name is called. Please make sure your video is on if possible, so we can confirm it's you. You'll find the unmute and video buttons on your Zoom screen. Please say here or present when your name is called. Anderson?
Here.
Anselmo,
Present.
Cole,
Here.
Dallas, Berstner,
Here.
Foraker,
I'm here, and John Dallas, I didn't hear him, but Mayor Dallas is on here.
Foraker, Henson,
Here.
McCann,
Here.
O'Brien, Ramos,
Present.
Sladeck,
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Trace.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, that completes the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Goldfarb. We will now have hear public comments on what we normally call action items, but in this format, we will be reviewing items for review and discussion. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak on any specific item? If so, please use the raise hand function or press *9 on your keypad. When we call your name, the host will unmute your microphone, and you will see a button that pops up that says the host wants to unmute you. Please accept the prompt, and we will unmute your microphone. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes. Is there anyone that wishes to have a comment at this time?
Mr. Chair, we do have one hand raised by Miss Joanne Canellis. We'll go
Perfect.
ahead and unmute her, and she can state her name and contact information for the record.
Ms.
Hi,
Canellis,
can you
you
hear me?
are recognized. Good morning.
Hi, this is Joanne Canellis. My address is 324 Claremont Avenue, Lake Mary, Florida, 32746. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. Yeah, we need to have a 24 hours bus and train service, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime, so that no one would be stranded like that. And we need a bus stop here at what do you call it, the South Country Club Road and the the corner of the South Country Club Road and Estella Road here. So I'll be able to hop on the bus, off the bus as I go everywhere, so I don't get stranded. We need we need this bus every half hour, and so is a train. And we need to have the bus stop over at the Oviedo Boulevard by the Kahuna, Big Kahuna swimming pool. You know where that is. It's by the Sprite and Spring here, whatever the heck that is. Not Spring, but the by the bowling alley. I used to go there with a bus at the bowling alley, and now we don't have no bus there. We do got the little bus, so we like to have that thick stuff outside there. And we need the the bus over at the Rentel Avenue at Lake Mary Prep School as well. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Canellis. Do
Miss
we have any?
Canellis.
Miss Canellis, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have links and DOT staff on the call that I'm sure have noted and acknowledged those comments. Are there any other hands raised for comment?
No, Mayor. Although we did receive one email comment in advance of the meeting from Ms. Canellis, reiterating the need for better transportation, transit service, 24 hours a day, everywhere.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, we will hear from our agency partners. FDOT and the Turnpike will be making presentations later on the agenda. So if you would rather defer comments until then, that is perfectly fine. Today, we have Mr. Burgett from the FDOT.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Thank you. So I did want to highlight 2 of our projects. Thank you for having me. You should have our construction report in your packet. Please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions. We're always happy to talk about our projects and the status. I wanted to highlight two of our projects. Currently, State Road 530, 1792, resurfacing from State Road 417 to Bamboo Lane. We did our final walkthrough on this project January 26th. We expect the project to be fully complete within the next 30 days. And we highlight this project because it's an example of just the level of cooperation between FDOT, the consultant, the city of Kissimmee, Osceola County government, and the utility companies such as Kissimmee Utility Authority and the Toho Water Authority. This is an example of how our partnership was able to complete a complicated project within budget and on schedule. So we thank all of our partners for that. And this project also enhances pedestrian safety and traffic movement. So it'll be a benefit to the community. The second project I wanted to highlight is the Oviedo Ultimate project, a long anticipated. That is of course, the 426, 419 widening from 2 lanes to 4 lanes with separated by raised median. This project just kicked off, and January 13th was the public meeting open house. So another project that has required a lot of successful coordination between partners. So wanted to share those highlights with you. And I will take any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burgett. I'm sure Mayor Sladak wants to say something.
I'm just glad that it is happening. So if you can make those the lanes narrower, that would be wonderful. That did come up at the public meeting, that having 11-foot lanes with a 4-foot bike lane, nobody on a bike around here says they'll use that. So if you can squeeze it a little before it's all the way constructed and have 5-foot bike lanes, that would be a lot safer feeling and probably more utilized. But yeah, I don't know how much you can change at this juncture.
I appreciate. Thank you, Mayor Sladak. Appreciate it.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for DOT at this time?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move to Florida Turnpike Enterprise, Mr. Saosi.
Good morning, committee members. The Turnpike has installed a brand new wheelwright tire management technology system at the Turkey Lake Service Plaza. The following video will go more in depth about the new technology.
New at noon, a look at new technology meant to keep Florida roads safer. The wheelwright tire safety system was installed today at the Turkey Lake Service Plaza along the Florida Turnpike. And as Channel 9's Q McCrae reports, it measures your tire pressure in real time.
Well, the system is very simple. All you have to do is drive up, but it's meant to save lives, and it's absolutely free. You're looking at the latest in transportation safety technology. It's called wheelwright.
I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's definitely good for safety.
Scott Wendell tried it out. All you have to do is drive down this lane. The magic happens under the car. In a flash, it measures the tire's air and tread levels. Seconds later, you get a printout with the results.
I mean, I do think it's beneficial. I mean, it saves accidents and blowouts on the road.
FDOT and the system's developer held a ribbon cutting event today. They say low tread and tire pressure can lead to crashes and affect braking.
When you're traveling at 70 miles per hour, 90 feet is the difference between having an accident and not having an accident.
And according to Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, last year there were 3,069 tire-related crashes in Florida, leading to 181 injuries and 61 deaths. Now, there are only 2 of these stations set up in the country. This one is located right here in Central Florida at the Turkey Lake Service Plaza on the Turnpike. I'm Q McCrae in Ocoee. Back to you guys inside.
Okay. Again, this technology can be found at the Turkey Lake Service Plaza, not too far from the Metro Plan offices. And it is a free service. So I would encourage you to stop by and see for yourself what the technology is like. But that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. That's a awesome looking system. Do you know how much that it cost if one of the municipalities wanted to have one installed in their area?
Not too sure about the cost. I can definitely get the cost estimates to you through Alex. But yeah, that's some information that I can send to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions for the Turnpike Enterprise? All right. Hearing none, up next is Miles O'Keefe with Links. Mr. O'Keefe, you are recognized.
Good morning, everyone. So yes, did capture Joanne's comments. So we'll make sure that they are relayed appropriately. As for an agency report, we're very pleased to say that we are reaching the completion of 2 construction projects that have been going on for some time. The first being our Rosemont Superstop, our little transfer location, the Rosemont community. That began in 2021, and it increased the number of bus shelters at the site from 4 to 10, with significant upgrades in safety features such as increased lighting, both kind of a pedestrian scale, but also for the roadway. More security fencing in key areas, as there is some stormwater. There's a creek in the area that we want to make sure everybody is safe around. Also some traffic calming through road narrowing and speed tables and raised crosswalks for those accessing, crossing the Rosemont transfer location. And those crosswalks also have the push button indicators to alert automobile drivers that there are pedestrians crossing in the area. So that is actually something really interesting to check out. So I encourage all of you, if you happen to be in the Rosemont area, stop by and see the latest in our bus transfer designs. On a larger scale, our Links Operations Center has undergone some expansion, and that has reached substantial completion in December of 2021. So we went with a design build method of development for this property. It's going to house about 200 of our paratransit vehicles, as well as any contractors for our paratransit service, as well as staff. So some administrative facilities in there, as long in addition to the dispatching and the maintenance of our paratransit service access links. Aside from construction activities, Links has completed its National Transit Database report. That is an annual activity that is required of the agency, covering basic things like population, but also more detailed in terms of the ridership by the service mode, our assets in terms of facilities and vehicles, their status. All this information gets folded up and factors into the formula funding that we receive from the federal government. So it's obviously of great importance for us to not just complete it, but make sure that the data is accurate, so we get as much funding for the Central Florida community as possible as it pertains to public transportation. Lastly, looking towards a future construction, we are actively working with a consultant to identify properties for a new southern operations base. So we're looking at kind of the South Orange, North Osceola County areas for a facility that would allow the agency to grow quite significantly as it is currently constructed. And as we continue to use more of the articulated buses, the 60-foot buses, the geometry is very constrained at our existing site. So we're looking at something that can help spread out our resources across the community, make sure that there's less deadhead or unused travel time between the end of service or the beginning of service and returning to base, but also to allow the agency to have confidence in the continuity of operations. Should a site be compromised, we would still be able to serve the community at a near full capacity with this second site. So this is a project that should take maybe 2.5, 3 more months for us to identify probably 2 primary sites to then pursue future environmental analysis, geotechnical analysis, and hopefully come to acquiring a property so we can begin construction there. So we're very excited about that. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Keefe. Good update. Does anyone have any questions for links at this time? All right, seeing none. Next, we have 2 items for review and discussion. Our first item is a review of the minutes from our December 2nd meeting, which are in tab 1 of your agenda packets. I hope you all had a chance to review them. And if there are any corrections or revisions, if you could please bring them up to staff at this time. All right, I don't see any hands. As a reminder, this will be brought back for formal approval at our next in-person meeting. Our next item is support for the DOT performance measures targets and links as asset management targets found in tab 2 of your agendas. Mr. Nick Lepp from Metro Plan Orlando staff will be presenting this information. If you could please hold your questions till the end of the presentation and we can get those answered. Mr. Lepp.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So every year we need to come back and re-support the federal performance measures that we use for our performance-based planning prioritization process. This all came to us about in MAP 2020 and MAP 21, which is about 2018, where we adopted this new performance-based planning process for our prioritization, where we established performance measures and targets to help us measure our assessment, how we're doing, and if we're making any significant progress towards meeting those target goals. Next slide, please. So we have 2 options of doing this from the federal government. We could support the Department of Transportation and their targets. And in that case, they will work with us in the data collection and the reporting to FHWA. Or we could set our own targets. And in that case, we would be responsible for doing all of the data collection and analysis for ourselves in our planning area to submit that to the Department of Transportation. Historically, we've supported the Department of Transportation's targets because we feel they are good and they support our goals and objectives and what we're trying to do here in MetroPlan. Next slide, please. So for the targets, we're going to go through the federal and then also the transit ones. So the first one is PM1, which is safety, which measures the number and rate of fatalities, as well as the number and rate of serious injuries and number and rate of non-motorized serious injuries and fatalities. Next slide, please. We have supported a Vision Zero target here in Metro Plan Orlando since 2018, meaning that we are looking for a target of 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries as we prioritize and move projects forward for programming. Next slide, please. 2 targets, PM2, that the Department of Transportation has done very well at. And in fact, Florida is well renowned for their maintenance of our system. So our bridge and pavement conditions have always been extremely well maintained. That's because the department is taking funds kind of off the top to always make sure we had a very well maintained system. So we continue to support their 2- and 4-year targets for both bridge and pavement in terms of good and poor condition. Next slide, please. Travel time reliability, which is our PM3 target for the federal measure, which is our surrogate to volume to capacity or looking at the capacity of a roadway for congestion. Now we're measuring it in terms of travel time reliability. So you've heard me say this a few times over the years, but I'll continue. We're looking for reliably congested corridors. I-4 is reliably congested. We know it's going to be congested during those peak periods, during those same times every single day during the weekday. So in that case, it's reliable. What we're looking for is those non-reliable corridors, those corridors that may have non-reoccurring congestion, and that may be due to an accident or some other issue on that corridor, which is why we might have it as a need. Next slide, please. We're also supporting Links as a partner on their transit asset management plan. We do this through some of our SU funds, which we automatically dedicate towards Links for that transit expansion. But this is also for them to make sure that they are maintaining that system to provide public transportation for the region, as Miles said, with that southern operation base needed to support the continuity of operations, as well as just maintaining Links' bus system. Next slide, please. And last but not least is the public transit safety target. A little different than just our Vision Zero, though they support Vision Zero for fatalities. Injuries is a little different with Links, as they need to measure injuries in terms of somebody tripping and falling on a sidewalk that might be at a bus stop. So in that terms, they have calculated their target based on some historical numbers to make sure that they are still establishing a target, but achieving something better than what they have in the past. Next slide, please. So those are the 6 performance measure federal targets that we need to re-support every year for the Department of Transportation. I would be happy to answer any questions, but we'll be presenting this to the board next week and looking for their support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lepp. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Seeing none, we will move to our presentation and status reports. Today we have 3 presentations. Again, please use the raise hand function to be recognized, or just blurt out really. You may raise your hand during the presentation and indicate you want to ask a question, but we will hold the questions until the end. If you're having any audio issues, if you could please type it into the chat box and we can relay your question. Up first is a presentation on Florida Sunshine Law. A little update by Ms. Whittington of Metro Plan Orlando staff. Take it away.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. It is that time of year. Each year we come back to you with a refresher on the Florida Sunshine Law and how it is applicable to the Municipal Advisory Committee. As I know that you all are already very much aware of this through your work with Tri-County League of Cities and the work that you do at your own respective municipalities, but we still bring this to you as a member of Metro Plan Orlando's Municipal Advisory Committee. First, the next slide, please. As a reminder and a refresher, there are 3 basic requirements of the statute with regard to public meetings, and that is that the meetings must be open to the public. We have to give them the public reasonable notice of the meetings taking place, as well as accessibility. And finally, minutes or highlights of those meetings must be taken for the record. Next slide, please. And so the definition of a public meeting is found in Florida Statute 286.011, and that is all meetings of boards, commissions, and of course this body, your meetings are subject to sunshine laws. Next slide, please. This includes all Metro Plan Orlando, the Metro Plan Orlando Board, each of its advisory committees, task forces that may come from those advisory committees, subcommittees that may come from those. All meetings that are established are subject to the Sunshine Law. And so what does this mean for you? Next slide. It means that discussions or conversations or interactions between 2 or more members who are on the same board, and that subject is possible in the foreseeable future to come before this body or the Metro Plan Orlando Board must be held in the sunshine. And that this means that it carries over to in-person meetings, phone calls, emails, text messages, in a social media. And I was even given some other examples of Morse code and smoke signals. Any communication between 2 or more members is, it needs to be publicly noticed. That does not mean that you cannot speak with your colleagues or talk with your colleagues. If there is something that will come before the Metro Plan Orlando Board, let us help you by letting us know that those meetings are going to happen, and we can post them appropriately so that the public would be able to access those. You as members must reveal and disclose or declare any conflicts of interest. And of course, this conflicts may include those that extend into some of your community activities. What happens with us as a staff, though, is if we are aware of events where 2 or more members are going to be present, we will go ahead and put a notice up on our board and possibly even up on our website if those meetings are not already publicly noticed. And so again, this is just a friendly reminder, a friendly refresher, just to keep us in compliance and to ensure that you know that we are here to help you in those instances where meetings need to be posted. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the refresher. I am happy to answer any questions that you or any other member of the board may have.
Thank you very much. I'm used to 4-hour sunshine updates, so a quick 3-minute is perfectly fine with me. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Whittington?
Well, I knew that would be the case, so happy to give you the abridged version there. Thank you, Mr. Hero.
All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Up next, we have a presentation of the progress made during 2021 on the implementation of Metro Plan Orlando's weighted goals for priorities. Mr. Nick Lepp with Metro Plan Orlando staff will be presenting. Take it away.
Thank you. Good morning again. Next slide, please. So historically, and I'm going to go back a little bit. So our 2040 long-range transportation plan was a very engineering, get the red out, a lot of widening roads. So about 5 years ago, Gary introduced emphasis areas for the board to start looking at programming and guiding our prioritization process towards more multimodal projects and in other emphasis that the boards had. So the board executive committee started putting these together, which was trail connectivity, engaging younger population, complete streets, safety, and sunrail connectivity. Next slide, please. Well, over the course of the development of the 2045 MTP, we incorporated those emphasis areas into our overall goals and objectives of health and environment, safety, security, reliability, performance, access and connectivity, as well as investment and economy. Next slide, please. So we wanted to show the alignment with this, and last year we presented it to the board and we decided to go forward with using the MTP goals as our emphasis areas and weighting those in turn instead of putting another emphasis on separate project types like safety and trail connectivity, which are already included and embedded in a lot of our goals itself, as well as the performance measures we use to do the prioritization. Next slide, please. So every year I went to them and I showed them how are we doing in terms of these emphasis areas and moving more money or more of our TMA funds towards those multimodal projects. When we started, we have about $27 million per year. So only about 70% of that over the 5-year period, 97 million was being spent about when we started this. Over the course of time, as we started looking at more programming towards multimodal emphasis and meeting those emphasis areas, that amount went up to the point where now, and this includes a lot of those stimulus funds that we received, we're up to 173 million, or 124% of our original federal allotment has been going towards multimodal improvement projects. So we are starting to put our money where our mouth is, coming out of that 2040 engineering, widening, get the red out plan. Next slide, please. So last year, these were how the goals were weighted. Board had safety and security as the #1 weighted goal, and then going down with access and connectivity, investment in the economy, reliability and performance, and health and the environment. That doesn't mean health and environment got thrown out. It just means it didn't receive as much weight on those performance measures as safety and security. And additionally, the board added some extra emphasis for vulnerable road users. So that even has even more emphasis as 2 times the weighted value. And that's what we went for the performance-based planning and presented to DOT for this tentative work program that you saw last month or last year. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to go to the board and confirm that they still want to continue with this method as we have continued to start supporting multimodal projects going into this next prioritization cycle. We shouldn't have to come back at that because once we confirm that we're going to continue with the weighted goals and objectives, we'll be able to see the results as we look at that prioritization process in May through that preview and then ultimately adopt in the June, July timeframe. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lepp. Does anyone have any questions? All right, quiet morning this morning. We will move on to the next report. Our final presentation is from Emily Hanna from the Bike Walk of Central Florida, who will provide the annual report on the Best Foot Forward pedestrian safety program. Take it away.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Hanna. I am the Executive Director of Bike Walk Central Florida. Bike Walk is the nonprofit advocacy organization that administers bike and pedestrian safety programming on behalf of our coalition and partners and program partners, including most of you. So today I'm here to update you on our signature program, which is Best Foot Forward, our pedestrian safety program. Next slide, please. And so for this year, I had announced that we were hoping to increase the number of participants in the Best Foot Forward program by reaching out to some of our smaller cities and to get them to participate. So in 2021, we added the town of Oakland and the city of Apopka. And then for 2022, the city of Winter Park and Longwood have joined the Best Foot Forward program. And of course, we are always advocating and hoping to increase the number of partners that we have. So if your community is not a coalition partner, we would love to have conversations as to how you can become one. Next, please. In addition, last year I came and presented to this group and talked about some of the changes we were making to the Best Foot Forward program. One of those changes that I'm reporting on that successfully occurred was putting all of our data online. So now you can go to the website that's listed below or scan your photo app on this QR code, and it'll take you directly to a landing page that has all of the yield rate data that we collect throughout the 3-county region in the program. Over 250 crosswalks and yield rate data is collected and put online, in addition to the number of enforcements, total warnings and citations issued during those enforcement evaluations. And then of course, all of the community outreach that we've done and what people have said in regards to walking and biking in their community at those outreach events specifically. Next slide, please. And though this is not directly related to Best Foot Forward, I do think it's important to share with this group that we've grown recently in the last year. We added on a new program, a new project that we're going to be working on in West Orange County. The West Orange Healthcare District and the Foundation for a Healthier West Orange has spearheaded a trails subcommittee of different municipality partners and agencies to build and support an active and engaged trail network in West Orange County. So we are now working really closely in more communities over on the west side. But that just meant that adding more staff allowed us to bring more resources, talk more with more people about bike and ped infrastructure and safety and how to do so comfortably in our community. Next slide, please. So this is what we've done in the region over the last year. We held 3 high visibility enforcement operations, which were conducted at 40 different crosswalk locations and had about 700-ish warnings and citations issued. We had about 320 media placements, and that media placement is really the return on the value of the program. We would have to pay for advertisement space to talk about bicycle pedestrian safety, but because we invite the media out to our enforcement operations and to some of our education events, they cover those topics. And so we equate that to basic earned media value, essentially what we pay for that advertisement. And we received about $1 million worth of advertisement for the program just over the last year. And with that, we had about 14 million impressions or eyeballs that touched or saw our message in the media. We were also out in the community, even though we weren't quite, still some virtual, still some in person, kind of that flex space, if you will, last year. But we still were able to go out and attend at 132 different events, touching and educating over 12,000 people and handing out a little over 13,000 materials as well. Next slide, please. This is where all the crosswalks are located across the 3-county region that we are monitoring. And this does not include the new crosswalks for 2022. That would be Winter Park and Longwood. But one of the things that I do want to point out, when we did put our data online, we were able to kind of coalesce it and see some interesting data points from the entire region. It's one thing to look at it in a spreadsheet, but it's another thing to be able to analyze it in a different set. So we looked at the different opportunities of what some of the data was telling us. And essentially, these are some of the big takeaways that I'd like to share with you. The average yield rate, the average number of times a driver is likely to yield to a pedestrian is based on the number of lanes. So if 2 lanes, we see that we have a kind of a low yield rate, a low percentage, but as we get into 3, 4 lanes, 5 or 6 lanes, you see that that yield rate actually increases. One of the reasons that we think that that's the case in the data, and we're kind of diving into this now, is that we provide more support, more signage, more striping, even the rectangular rapid flashing beacons at those crosswalks where you do have to cross some of those wider roadways. And so we often see that with that increase in striping and visibility for drivers, that they're likely to yield to a pedestrian if it's very visible for them. So that's why we think we see that trend. We are going to dive into that. Hopefully I'm here next year presenting to you more on this. We also look into the school distance and those yield rates, and it was surprising that within a quarter mile of our schools, we actually see lower yield rates than outside of that quarter mile of a school. And again, part of the thought process of that is that usually we have school crossing guards that assist children to cross the street. We do not collect data while those school crossing guards are out doing their job. We are there usually before or after the school lets out or goes in, so that we can just measure data without, making that interference. And unfortunately, we're finding that drivers just don't pay attention to people that are outside of the school hours that want to cross the road. So maybe more emphasis and looking at some striping and signage to maybe improve the visibility of our school crosswalks in and around our community. So we'll look into that a little bit further. And then one of the things that I think we all kind of knew, but we wanted to use some data to tell us, was that the rectangular rapid flashing beacons do work, and they work very well when installed. And so this is the change of yield rates over time. So obviously the Best Foot Forward program is going to increase that yield rate regardless through our education, enforcement, and engineering. But when you add a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, the yield rate almost doubles, and it does so very, very quickly. We often find that once those types of infrastructure are installed, we often graduate the crosswalk because it's no longer a need for our resources to be there. We go off and find another one that we need to enforce and monitor. Next slide, please. So I also wanted to highlight a few other projects that we worked on in the Best Foot Forward program to really move the needle. And this was really small engineering projects that the communities were able to implement to see some significant results. The first one is Dover Plum and San Remo Road. They moved some flex stakes around, changed the position of a stop sign, and added some stop bars to their existing rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which was somewhat low performing at a 52% yield rate. But with the install of the stop bar and those little changes, which took Osceola County traffic engineering a couple days to do, we saw an increase of 19 points in the yield rate, so almost 70%. So from 50 to 70% just by adding a stop bar and some additional signage really made that crosswalk more comfortable. And we interviewed some of the folks that used that is by a library and a Lynx bus stop, and they did say that it made them feel a lot more safer crossing that road. Next slide, please. This one is out on Pine Hills Road. This is the RFB that was installed in November of 2020. Had good yield rates for an RFB, but not a lot of drivers really being aware of the fact that they were lit and installed. We had some issues with some technical lighting as well. But once that actually was implemented and with some enforcement operations, it improved over 56% in the program since being monitored in 2014. So we can say, statistically, that this crosswalk is actually much safer to cross now because of not only the addition of the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, but also the enforcement and education that we've done in the community as well. And next slide, please. Final crosswalk is in the city of Orlando. This is Michigan Ave and Cayman Way. This crosswalk was a little scary. We've done several enforcement operations out here, and the city installed some additional stop here for pedestrian signage along with that stop bar. And we saw an immediate 16% improvement just by adding the signs and stripes on the ground. But overall, this crosswalk has improved over 60% since inception of the program. Again, just showing that those E's do work in improving and making our community safer for people to walk and bike. Next slide, please. And we, like I said, we're out in the community doing different type of events. We were able to fit helmets in Seminole County, go down to Osceola County, and do some bike and safety instructions. We also did bike to school events. We're able to finally get into some schools and walk with kids outside of that facility. Unfortunately, the schools weren't really excited for a lot of people to come in physically. So we were able to try to do things virtually or with other nonprofit groups outside. Next slide, please. We also had some great media and social media engagement. I touched on the media engagement already, but we curated about 600 social media posts, which got about 334,000 impressions or likes or comments. We had about 430 new followers on social media and about 6,000 total engagements, or getting people to share or comment on our messaging. Next slide, please. So lots of people talking about pedestrian safety. And then in addition, we held 3 enforcement operations, which, like I said, totaled around 700 or more than warnings and citations. As you can see, our November operation was the smallest that we had. However, ending the year strong with our July operation, having over 8 participating agencies and 14 crosswalks with over 300 warnings and citations. We anticipate this year to be even bigger because of the growth that we've had in the program. So our enforcement operations just keep getting larger and larger, and we just educate more and more drivers of the driver yield law. Next slide, please. And you can just go through these pretty quickly, Leilani. Though this is Osceola County and the cities. This is Orange County. Can't wait to get Winter Park in there this year. And then this is Seminole County. I will like to point out we have Mayor Henson there with the Castleberry team. He came out and was a participant of the operations last year. So thank you, Mayor Henson, for joining us. Next slide, please. And then this is the progress to date in the entire program since its inception in 2012. We've educated close to 11,000 drivers and held over 563 of those crosswalk details. We monitor about 250 crosswalks in the program, which is a lot of data that we share with our partners, consulting firms, whoever wants the information, we are happy to provide it. This is something that we want to make sure we're trying to do in the community, is share everything that we have. And then we have done over 681 presentations, including today's. Next slide, please. So this is the list of the coalition partners, all of the municipal agencies and their law enforcement partners, along with some of the other nonprofit groups that work with us. I also have to shout out to Orlando Health. Their prevention injury coordinators come out to our operations often and are often decoys during those enforcements. Next slide, please. And finally, to wrap up, what I always say is just continue to share the message about why it's important for you to stop and let a school child or your grandmother or a friend to cross the street. Don't make them wait. Don't put their life in somebody else's hands. Do the right thing. Be a good community member. Stop and yield for anyone and everyone, regardless of how long it's going to take, because at the end of the day, their life matters just like everybody else's. But continue to share our message if you can. Like us on social media and follow us there for latest and greatest on bike ped related news. Also, if you need bumper stickers, we have magnets as well. We love to hand those out and love to see those on vehicles. I am always happy to come out and present and talk about this to any group who's willing to listen. I enjoy doing these presentations and engaging people in understanding why it's important for us to follow that law. And then, of course, why it's important for our health, economy, and safety to be able to have a great place to walk and bike. And then just let people know if they're interested in getting involved. We have lots of volunteer opportunities. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if you're a community that's not a part of the Best Foot Forward program and are interested in becoming a part, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or reach out to any of your contacts at MetroPlan. They can get a hold of me and we will be happy to come out and educate.
It appears that we kind of lost Emily there on the audio side, so we'll give her another couple of seconds to see if things open back up on her end, and we'll take some questions if you have any.
All right. Still looks frozen to me. All right, well, that was a great presentation, and looks like they've had a busy 10 years. Does anyone have any questions?
Keith, this is Phil. Phil Anderson. Just wanted to, I was hoping she was going to still be on the line to tell her thank you for jumping into Winter Park, but we're excited about it.
Awesome, that's great. And if anyone else wants to join, I'm sure, well, you have the email address up there as well, but yeah, please reach out to them. And I went to one of those enforcement events a couple of years ago, and it's eye-opening and enlightening to a lot of the drivers that don't realize current laws.
It appears Emily's back online now. So Emily, if you're with us and you can hear us, I am Mary.
I am here, Alex. I'm so sorry. We lost power briefly, so my computer died. That was very random. I apologize.
Well, Mayor Anderson just wanted to kind of relay, and maybe I'll just let him repeat himself. Mayor, go ahead.
Sure. I just want to tell you, thank you for jumping into Winter Park. And, you know, if Mayor Hansen can do it, then I can do it. So invite me to come down to one of those enforcement things.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Thank you. Happy to have
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions? All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. And that concludes the presentations for today. Up next, there are several items under the general information on tab 3 in your agenda packet, including the PD&E study tracking report and the list of the board's 2022 legislative priorities. Our next MAC meeting will be March 3rd, 2022. Staff will advise us of the format of that within the next couple weeks. And the next Metro Plan Orlando board meeting is next week on February 9th. That meeting will be held in person. At this time, are there any committee members that wish to make any final comments? All right, I don't see any hands raised. And then our final item is the final public comment portion. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment? Please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone's keypad. We'll unmute your mic after you're recognized. Please state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any raised hands at this time?
Mr. Chair, we're not seeing any raised hands. We'll give it just another second. Still seeing none.
All right. Thank you very much. Final item of the day is let's adjourn. There's no further business, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday.
Thank you.